Like I stated in my British propaganda videos, I don't agree that Tony Blair, without help, could have taken Britain to war. I strongly oppose that idiotic mantra that gets repeated all the time by all kinds of people that insists that Tony Blair was an all-powerful war criminal and an all-powerful tyrant like Hitler or Stalin. That should be unacceptable to anyone who has even a basic notion of how the British government works. One man cannot take the country anywhere without the backing of the regime and of its real controllers. The idea was propagated by public relations agencies to protect the legitimacy of the regime and to divert the blame of the war from the real invisible government, the government that runs Britain and the US, from the offices of international banking cartels and the headquarters of secret societies. More to the point, the myth that Tony Blair has all the blood of the war in his hands is being publicized to divert the culpability of the wars in the Middle East from international Zionism. Tony Blair, like Obama and Clinton and Putin, started as a minor politician in a minor part of Great Britain. He was a MP for Setchfield, a place in the back of nowhere. The Labour Party then was much more left-wing than it is nowadays, and then Tony pretended to be left-wing too. He even belonged to the CND, a proto-communist organization which advocated for the unilateral nuclear disarmament of the UK at the very peak of the Cold War. He was also very vociferous in his attacks against the Conservative government, accusing them of being anti-democratic and of attacking civil liberties. This is incredible considering his cabinet's later sledgehammering of civil and religious freedoms in the 90s. Blair was also, and supposedly still is, a member of the Fabian Society. For those who don't know what the Fabian Society is, let me just say that George Orwell's 1984 is a satire of them, where they are referred to as INCSOC, or short for English Socialism. 1984 is not a book about a vague concept of tyranny, as your teachers probably told you, but it's about the Fabian Society and about English socialism in particular. Also interesting is the banner of the Fabian Society, which depicts a wolf in sheep's clothing, a very fitting symbol for Tony Blair himself if he ever needs one. Then, as later, he always attached himself to whoever and whatever seemed to be convenient for him at the time, showing himself to be available, malleable and power-hungry, willing to change his coat and his tune to rise in the power structure. By the late 80s, he had risen to head of the Labour Party, then in the opposition. He became Prime Minister in the 1997 elections. The Labour Party won greatly thanks to the economic depression which followed George Soros' destruction of the currency, and also thanks to the shameless promoting of Blair by the Zionist Rupert Murdoch through his newspapers and TV stations. The same Murdoch who had supported Margaret Thatcher and then David Cameron. He always supports the candidates who eventually win, but I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Also very interesting is his very public, religious, private life. He keeps repeating it in interviews, how important his Christian religion is and was during his life. This is nothing more than just another example of his unashamed willingness to attaching himself to anything that can be useful to him politically. More importantly, this ruse is also a way of diverting the attention of his war crimes from its real originators, the Jewish neoconservative thinkers and bankers. Blair even went to the ridiculous extreme of pretending to convert to Catholicism right at the moment where millions of people had finally realized who was behind the attacks of 9/11 and who was behind the war in Iraq. Through his actions from the beginning as Prime Minister, Blair revealed whose agenda he was really serving. He started by destroying civil liberties. Through the Human Rights Act and other legislation, his cabal managed to protect foreign criminals from deportation, install a state of de facto affirmative action in all areas of society, and also continuously pursue an agenda of defending minority religions and homosexuality from criticism, and eventually criminalizing such criticism. And this is textbook globalism. Another weapon in this culture war for a new Britain was the amazing relaxation of immigration controls. New Labour basically allowed into Britain everybody by removing controls on mass immigration, and also rewarding millions of newcomers with housing and many other benefits that native Britons are very often denied, like the Chinese Communist government in Tibet and Stalin in Central Asia back in the 30s. Blair used immigration as a tool for weakening society, turning Britain into a Babylon with 1,000 different groups, with 1,000 different loyalties, a much more easily controllable society than an unified Britain would be. Blair's henchmen also insanely abolished media sexual censorship. So now the TV company is controlled by Jewish and Zionist pornographers like Murdoch, Michael Gray, and Richard Desmond, who helped to get him into power in the 80s and 90s, are now completely free to broadcast all kinds of pornography all day long, disguised as sex education or documentaries. Like when the Israelis invaded Ramallah in 2002, they took over the Palestinian TV stations, imposed a curfew on the people, and started broadcasting pornography all day long, supposedly to liberate the Palestinian minds. As with the British people today, no curfews just yet, but if you stay at home in front of the TV, you'll be zapping through channel after channel with imbeciles using the most base language and openly debating the most disgusting themes they can come up with, showing all kinds of depravities. And at the end of the day, you'll feel liberated, like I guess the Palestinians felt in the Israeli control. The greatest achievements of Tony Blair were, without a doubt, his wars. He did not have a national or a personal interest in creating the wars in the Balkans or in the Middle East, besides the fact that he needed to pay back the forces who put him in power, and which could have easily have removed him from it. Those forces which wished for the destruction of Yugoslavia and for the destruction of Israel's enemies. He led the NATO countries into the bombing of Serbia in 1999, following the images claiming to be of Serbian extermination camps done by a team of prostitute journalists working for the pimps Murdoch, Michael Gray, and the Guardian media group. And following years of false reporting by the same cabal, why did the globalist Zionist machine wish to destroy Yugoslavia? The reason was the same reason: they want to unify Europe and America. The aim is to control. Sometimes an union is advantageous, like in Europe or in America, if they already control the more powerful countries in it. In the case of Yugoslavia, they didn't control any of the republics, so they wanted to fracture it. They knew most of the constituting republics would later join the EU. They knew they would reinforce Islam in Europe, which is very important for them. And so it was an opportunity too good to miss, and they had to get their servants to act quickly and get NATO in before a permanent ceasefire or a compromise between Serbia and the other republics could be achieved. The Serbian concentration camps and atrocities were the weapons of mass destruction of the day, lies of the Zionist media as a pretext for war. The wars that followed in the aftermath of the false flag attacks of New York City in 2002 were more serious in the number of casualties and more serious in the subverting power. Following the Mossad's destruction of the Twin Towers, Blair was very eager to obey the demands of Richard Pearl and William Crystal that Saddam should pay for it. And for it, Saddam indeed did pay. And so did everybody in the Middle East, definitely everybody in Iraq and Afghanistan. And who knows what catastrophes will follow these wars. Another important success of Tony Blair was what he did at home. In the 10 years he reigned over Britain, a blueprint for the society of the future was tested. Not a definitive model, but a step towards the nightmarish society where every human being is under surveillance everywhere and all the time. At the moment of Tony Blair's resignation in 2007, there were 4.2 million security cameras in the UK. That's 4.2 million cameras for 62 million citizens. There are more cameras in Britain today than in the whole of Western Europe, which has some 600 or 800 million people. Also incredible are the over 4,000 new criminal offenses created by New Labour. Many of those offenses and laws are apparently ridiculous, like prohibitions against disturbing a pack of eggs and prohibitions against carrying out nuclear explosions in the country. These laws don't seem to make any sense other than to make British law become as difficult and as esoteric as the Talmud. But many of the laws have more direct consequences, like the anti-terrorism legislation and laws protecting all kinds of minority groups and ideas. It is now illegal to criticize homosexuality in public. It's practically illegal to criticize any non-Christian religions in public as well. In conclusion, the cocktail of new laws made Christian morality and natural law thinking into quasi-criminal offences, and British citizens have now similar rights to privacy and less rights of freedom of expression than prisoners in US maximum security prisons. Also, by furthering usage of public education as a tool for political and for sexual propaganda, and by allowing the TV company owners to broadcast what they well please, the resistance of the public to these waves of immorality is close to non-existent. As I want to keep this video short, I want to look into other achievements of Tony Blair's to globalism and international Zionism, like its protection of Monsanto and genetically modified agriculture, his bailout of the criminal banks, and the extremely important attacks on laws protecting the family and in the institution of marriage. But I hope I've given you at least reasons to rethink some of the misconceptions involving Tony Blair and his regime. And ideally, I managed to persuade you that Tony Blair did not use his term in office to pursue whatever agenda he was elected for, but to chase an extremely clear globalist Zionist agenda. Through his wars for globalism and Israel's expansionism, his crusade against nationhood and the family, is put in the face of civil liberties and his complete subservience to international finance. Thanks for listening.